these retroviruses go through a long process to really get things done, longer than some of the other viruses. Some viruses, once they infect, they can start using their RNA and messenger RNA, and they can start making proteins right away. Okay. Translation of viral messenger RNA to create viral polyproteins, which then, what's a polyprotein?
More than one protein?
What would it be? Because proteins are polymerized amino acids, right?
Uh-huh.
So what's a polyprotein?
A group of amino acids?
No, that would be a protein.
Okay.
They are polyprotein. It has a lot to do with viruses, and I'm kind of going through it because it's how some of these drugs work. What they do sometimes, they'll make a big long polyprotein, one big protein, viruses will, and then they'll cut that protein into individual, that polyprotein, they'll cut it into individual functional proteins, right?
So it's a long chain cut up?
Yeah, so it's a long chain, and so it's like a protein, it would be, so you have maybe GAG, I think here is one of them, and then maybe GP120 might be here. So it's made like this, right?
Uh-huh.
And then these proteases, an enzyme that they make from their information, will come through and start cutting it into individual proteins. Okay. That makes sense to everybody how that works?
Yeah.
Okay. So cleavage of viral proteins, it says it right here. Cleavage of polyprotein in individual viral proteins that make up the new virus. It's just a quicker, faster way to make everything at once, and then it cuts it up. And then you have assembly and release. The reason we go through this life cycle is theoretically, what could you do at every one of these points?
Kill
Treat
it?
it,
What?
treat it.
Treat it, kill it, treat it, whatever. You could stop replication, right? And you could, knowing this, you could start designing drugs that would target these parts. You've got parts that can target assembly. They've got a whole class of drugs that prevents cleavage of the viral polypeptide protein, okay?
Does that go for 1 through 4 or just 5 through 8? That you can, all of it, okay.
Because you've got the attachment antagonists, I'll talk about
So
those
all
a
of
little bit. Internalization and uncoding, if you can prevent a virus from uncoding, you stop it, it can't encode, it can't do anything. There's a whole class of drugs that inhibit reverse transcription.
Okay.
There's a drug that integrates inhibitors that inhibit this. So the point is, every one of these steps they've targeted for the most part, or tried to target. Now, we'll go through the phase of infection. If I fall asleep, somebody wake me up. What is the primary infectious phase of HIV? Does anybody know? Is there a primary infectious phase? How do you know when you're infected with HIV?
You don't.
You don't. Is there any primary signs or symptoms of early
Like
infection?
early infection?
Yeah.
Not really.
Flu-like symptoms.
That's like closer to like where you
The 2-week marker.
symptomatic, right?
Fever.
Not even 2.
No?
When
Longer.
you're
Yeah,
in
good.
isn't it?
There is. It's called the primary infection phase.
Fever, rash, headache.
Yeah, fever, rash, headache,
When does that happen?
malaise, usually about 2 weeks after
Oh.
you've been infected. The problem is it feels just like what?
Cold.
Every other viral infection, the flu or a bad cold or anything like that. So most people don't realize it.
So it's like go to the doctor and be like, oh, I
They
need
just, because it doesn't last that long, it's not that bad, but there is a primary infectious phase.
Would that be the best time to reverse it or treat it or stop it?
Actually, wait till we get to treatment, we'll talk about it.
Okay.
Because the treatment protocols have changed. The idea behind it has changed in the last few years.
Okay.
All right, now you get this chronic asymptomatic or latency stage. Remember who took medical mark over? Remember we talked about latency versus chronic and all the how it's hard to. This is right here. The terminology is kind of weird. It's chronic, but it's also latent, so it gets weird. The point is, the infection is in there. The reason I don't like latency on this one, I like chronic better for HIV in particular. Is it really in latency? Some of the cells are in latency. That's why you can't cure it with the medication. Some viruses go into latency. Okay?
Because they're not active.
No. They integrate and they say, okay, I'm going to take a nap for a while. Okay? So something triggers me. That's why you can't cure it, because of that latency. But the infection itself is chronic at this point. And what's the difference between these two?
Active and
One's active, one's not active, but the chronic infection, but you're asymptomatic with this chronic infection. So is there still active viral replication going on during the chronic part, when you don't feel sick?
Yes.
Yes. And what HIV, they found out now, they used to think it was mostly latency, but what it really turns out is it's a battle, and it's a race during this chronic asymptomatic phase. That the virus is replicating, and you actually elicit an immune response against HIV.
That's a whole 10-year part, right?
That's a whole 10-year part. And there's this constant battle going on. The problem is, who always wins that battle?
AIDS.
The HIV does. You elicit an immune response, you make cytotoxic T cells, you make some antibodies, they're just not very good. Because remember I said that receptor kind of hides for HIV until it gets close to the cells. So they have found a couple people that have broadly neutralizing antibodies, and they're trying to recreate those. But the point is, it's a race. It's a battle between your immune system and the HIV virus. And eventually, since the HIV virus is killing off your helper T cells, which is what part? The helper T cells? We're doing immunology here now.
Oh, so you're adaptive immune?
You're adaptive, it orchestrates your entire adaptive immune response. So it's going after the cells that are orchestrating that adaptive immune response. So eventually it's usually gonna win. Now, has there been somebody that's been infected with HIV and we don't know it and they got cured?
Maybe.
My guess is probably. My guess is there's probably something that we would never ever know, right?
Mm-hmm.
But my guess is there's probably somebody out there whose immune system was able to take it on. Now, once you reach a,
I have a question, just how HIV works.
uh-huh.
If your body basically didn't attack the HIV, it wouldn't work.
What do you
Am I right? Because HIV attacks, twists everything once it attacks, and it goes back and reproduces, messed up.
Yeah.
And that's what ends up causing it, because like you say, nobody dies from HIV, or nobody dies from AIDS, nobody.
Yeah. That was actually a thought, that maybe one of the problems is that big battle that's going on is sort of helping HIV win. But the problem is, eventually your CD4 count would drop down, even if it didn't elicit an immune response against it. Because what happens is, HIV is gonna affect your CD4 cells, right? And it's gonna replicate. Now, it only buds off, it doesn't lyse the cells, but eventually it damages them so much that they die. So eventually your CD4 cells would start to die off. So what would that do to your adaptive immune response? It would eventually, it might take longer, but that has been one thought, that maybe if you could modulate the response a little bit, you might increase the time. They actually did look into that. But it turned out in the long run, it's just gonna kill off enough CD4s that it's gonna get. But they actually did look at that. And then overt AIDS is what? What's the hallmark of AIDS?
Like symptoms, you mean? The lesions and the pneumonia?
Could be an indicator of disease, and we'll talk about in a minute. And this
So
is
overt AIDS, we're gonna put the indicated,
that's when you start with, AIDS is a syndrome, right? Caused by the loss of your T cells due to HIV infection.
So would it be like your viral load and the CD4?
Your viral load will be up, your CD4 count's gonna go down. And it drops below 200 copies per microliter of your CD4s, that's when your immune system is completely compromised. Wait. And I have it down here, category 5, category 1 is gonna be what?
500.
It's greater than 500, okay? So the clinical importance of CD4 cell count in the categorization HIV-related clinical conditions. Category 1 is going to be greater than 500. You still got a semi-functioning immune response. Category 2 is going to be 200 to 499. And category 3 is going to be less than 200. So and this is when your immune system completely collapses for the most part. It's just not enough.
And that's the actual full-blown AIDS.
And then think about it. That's a lot of cells. I mean, does that sound like a lot of cells to you?
No.
Per microliter of blood?
Oh, yeah, that's kind of large, isn't it?
I'm a visual person.
Same amount. Like 500 cells in that tiny
That's
little
about-
amount.
That's probably 4 microliters.
That's a lot of cells.
Wow.
And that's when you already started to kill them off. So, It just amazes me how many cells you get in a microliter. And then the viral particles in there are in the tens of thousands of viral particles per microliter.
So what's considered low viral count?
What is considered low viral
Like where you
count?
said it's almost like you're not, like you don't have HIV.
Oh, what they call undetectable? Yeah,
It'll be greater than 500?
no, that you're talking about viral
Oh,
load. It's undetectable, so it'd be theoretically zero.
I mean, you could still detect it though,
You,
right?
no, it's undetectable.
Well, what does that mean though?
That means they can't detect it.
So if they take an STD test, it just doesn't detect it at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it is so low, but you still have those, you
So
still
it's
have
just
those,
going down.
you still have those latently infected cells though, right?
That's what I'm saying, it's still there.
Right, so,
But you can't,
It's there.
but you
you
can't
can't
detect
test
it.
it.
The viral, okay, hold on, back up this. This gets,
So stupid.
okay. So you've got, HIV is gonna have the virion, right?
Yeah.
Which is the outside, it's the virus outside of the cell, right?
Okay.
And then you're gonna have the integrated, right, in the DNA. So it's existing in two forms, right? This one's infecting and actively dividing and making copies of itself, right? This one's gonna get integrated in there, and some of these are gonna go into latency and just hide
So
there.
it's just in your DNA, but it's
Right,
not.
it's not doing anything, it's in latency.
It's not
So it's just sitting there. And they don't know why things come in and out of latency, they're trying to trigger that. So the problem is, you can drop this down to undetectable levels.
Yeah, but it's still in your DNA.
But
So
you
you
still
don't
got-
know if it's gonna not become, like if it's gonna become out of latency.
Yeah, it's
As
gonna
soon as you come off the
Virals?
medication, bam, they start coming out of latency.
No.
They probably already are, they're not replicating because you've got the drugs, right?
Mm.
So they're probably coming out of latency, but you're knocking down that, because part of it, and I'll get to the end, why it still stays undetected. Now, could you detect viral DNA in some of your T cells?
Not all,
Could you though?
yeah.
Yes, you can use PCR, and that's the way they do it now, so. They're just talking, so when they say the viral load is undetectable, they mean the actual viral particle is undetectable.
So, okay.
You know, hopefully a PCR here. Which of the following cell types is most problematic in the development of AIDS?
Okay.
C, A.
Most problematic.
And which one's gonna cause the biggest problems when it gets infected?
C.
It's
CD4. That's the
Yes.
battle right there, CD4. Alright. So treatment options are gonna reduce the number of long-living HIV infected cells, those memory cells. So these are latently infected. What they're trying to do is they're trying to come up with different drugs to force the latently infected cells to become active. So you can get rid of the ones that are hiding. Because if you can force them all to come out of latency, right? And you're on the medication, you should ideally eventually do what?
Get rid of them.
Get rid of all those cells. So that's one of the treatment strategies they're trying to do.
So they're taking them on and off the drug?
Hmm?
They're taking them on and off?
No, they're trying to find some sort of compound that will induce all the cells to come out of latency. And it's been pretty difficult to do. And it sounds like it's going to be possible to me. Okay? Protect functioning HIV infected cells and cytotoxic T cells. Okay? And help maintain a homogeneous viral population that will better be controlled by antiviral therapy and the immune system. What do they mean by that? So this is that primary infectious phase.
But it does make you go into like undetectable quicker?
Okay? What happens in the primary phase when the immune system first detects it, right?
Yeah.
The viral infection. That's early on.
Oh,
The point is, if you can attack it now, we talk about treatment strategies, and I'll go back why it's changed to this.
It kind of insert into the DNA.
But it can, but once you're infected, you're infected. It's
Yeah.
too late. Once you got primary, bam, it's too late. They actually would rather get it before, well, let me go back to that in a minute, okay? The idea now, okay. It's gonna start from the back and go to the front. The original treatment strategy idea behind HIV treatment, back when the drugs had tons of side effects and everything else, was to wait until you started getting symptomatic. To wait until your CD4 count got so low, then they start treating you.
because it was so harsh, the drug.
Because it was so harsh on
Okay.
you. They have found out now, though, that it's much better to start treatment early.
Yeah.
Because if you start treatment early, you can reduce the what? Number of infected cells, so you can reduce the number of memory cells. I don't know how it's gonna help in the long run that much. you can protect what's left of your CD4s and your CD8s, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can what? What do they mean by this part?
That's what we're talking about the viral load staying very low so that you can maintain that.
Right, but what do they talk about here? Help maintain a homogeneous viral population that will better be controlled by antiviral
Like
therapy.
keep them small in number.
Keep them out.
Keep them balanced?
Not manageable, not small
The
necessarily.
medicine won't, you won't need as much.
But what does homogeneous mean, viral population? What is a homogeneous population?
Maybe,
So some that won't hurt you, like an amount, a group that won't, a group that's so small it won't hurt you. Like it's
Well, isn't it like a balance outside in, inside?
What is homogeneous, what is a homogeneous population? What would a homogeneous population of humans be? Where would I find a homogeneous population of humans?
cities.
Not in El Paso.
Oh. Never mind.
They're all the same, so where?
Like monkeys?
Like tribal communities, like reservations.
Yeah, well, you can do that. Some of the Native American reservations, some of the Mormon populations are more homogeneous.
Yeah.
Some of the Jewish populations are more homogeneous. You can also have,
But what does it mean that they're homogeneous?
They're all the
they-
same.
Genetically, they're much
Oh.
more closely
Oh.
aligned, and that's what they're talking about, homogeneity.
Oh.
Right? And so, why do you want to keep this homogeneous population of viral?
easier to control.
They haven't mutated yet.
Oh.
So if they haven't mutated inside the body yet, you're gonna have a better chance of the antiviral therapy working, right? The same drugs will keep working. You don't have to worry about mutations as much. Secondly, there is some thought that hopefully, if you could start this, that your immune system may at some point actually get strong enough or get tuned in enough to. Now, it hadn't happened, okay? But as far as we know, but that's kind of the hope too. That your immune system can keep it under control and maybe at some point, maybe be able to control the infection. Now, they've tried this. Have you heard of the drug holidays for HIV infected patients?
It's a what?
Drug holidays, they call them. They don't do this much now because again, the side effects aren't as bad as they used to be.
Colonies?
There was a thought, drug holidays, they call them.
Holidays. Oh,
Holidays.
I've heard of that.
There was a thought that maybe when you were on the medications long enough, that your immune system would get strong enough to take the virus on, and they would put you on these drug holidays, so you could come off the drugs for a while.
Yeah.
And they were hoping to see this suppression of the virus by your immune system. Didn't happen, yeah. drug holidays
But they
didn't
do
work.
that with other drugs as well, right?
They do with other drugs.
The stronger
too, but
ones.
They quit doing it with HIV because not only, so what was the problem with that? So you just go back to the drugs, right?
Yeah. But it takes your body a while to get back.
Then you have more.
But what have you done to the homogeneity of that viral
Oh,
population?
mutated some of them.
You got mutations in there now, so that's bad. So they're completely against the drug holidays now. Yeah, you can do it, unless you're Sean, not Sean Perry.
Charlie Sheen.
Charlie Sheen.
You always forget.
I always forget Charlie Sheen. He's the one who,
What's wrong with them? Oh,
what?
I didn't know that.
You know Charlie Sheen? What?
Tiger
I know who that
Blood.
is. I
Oh.
don't know when he has.
So he's HIV positive, and he was doing really well on the therapy, and then he somehow learned that somebody down in Mexico supposedly had a holistic cure for it. So he went down there, went off his medication,
Made it work.
he and Charlie Sheen, yeah, boom, his viral load just shot right back up.
And he was an undetectable, right?
Yeah, he was at undetectable level, he was doing really well.
So he caused a mutation or no?
You don't know, but more than likely, HIV mutates all the time,
No.
just is it a beneficial mutation?
So is it kind of like how we were talking about when we were in cancer about how they're doing chemo now before surgery? And so they're doing the same thing now with HIV where they give you the hard
Well, I
medications.
know they do like the fusion drug, right, to prevent it from fusing.
Yeah, the integration drug and the fusion inhibitors, yeah. Those are prophylactic though. Those-
Yeah, so how did the prophylaxis work for like, say you're in the hospital and the doctor gets like,
Okay, we'll get that in a second. There's one that's called, there's a kidney headache. What's it called? Something prophylaxis therapy. I'll tell you about that in a minute when we get to it in a second. All right, so the typical core, we already went over this, 60 to 70% of people, this is untreated, right?
yeah,
Are going to convert to full-blown AIDS in 10 to 11 years. That's the typical time.
still kind of long, right?
Huh?
Still kind of long.
Yeah, oh, it's a lot, because it's that battle. That's what we're talking about. They used to think it was all latency. It's not. This is how long it takes for your immune system to get overwhelmed. Okay? You have the rapid progressors, which is about 10 to 20%. They come down with full-blown AIDS in less than 5 years.
These are all untreated, right?
These are all untreated. And these are people who probably already have some sort of genetic difference in their immune system, so their response is not quite as potent.
Well, how do they know? They let them have AIDS?
Well, this is all data from before they had all the drugs and everything else. We're mostly
But how do they know when they acquired it?
they do histories and stuff, and they can backtrack and everything else. So,
I mean,
you don't have to narrow it down into like, was it Thursday? You know?
No, yeah, I
You
know,
can
but
narrow
I'm
down to
saying
like a
like,
time
how
frame.
can they know?
Well, then some people who get AIDS choose not to treat it at all.
When was this? When was that? I mean,
You're like, I
yeah.
don't remember.
But this is also a huge data set. You're
My
talking
whole
about a huge data set. You could also look at people who got blood transfusions. You know exactly when they got that blood
Yeah.
transfusion, right? Man, how long did that take? And other things. So. And, yeah.
Because that's just, I'm just wondering, if they start treating them right away, how would they know if it's untreated for that long?
Because back then, a lot of the data came before they had any drugs. So that was even before the time they had the drugs.
You couldn't even treat them. Right?
So, because it started, the official outbreaks like 1983. How long has HIV been in the U.S. now?
Like 80, 30 years?
I thought it was the 80s. They found blood tissue samples from the 60s and before.
What?
It just,
Yeah, what?
it was isolated cases that didn't get spread around. Yeah.
I still think it was not.
Now where are we? Slow progressors. Okay, these are called long-term. Slow progressors takes about 15 years. Okay, these are called long-term non-progressors, or the new term for them they call them elite controllers.
So, do they do a lot of research into long-term non-progressors?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would, right?
Yeah, and what do they have though? Most of those have that mutation in that CCR5 gene. So 1% have been affected for at least 8 years, are antiretroviral naive, which means they are not on medication. Okay, then they have high CD4 counts and have usually very low viral loads.
Naive would be like that they've never taken it, right?
Yeah, naive, they've never taken it. They never taken it. And some people out there don't even know this. They'll go for blood work later on, something, and they're like, hey, by the way, you're HIV positive. What?
What?
So, but I haven't done anything in
That's
30
scary.
years.
What?
Since the 60s.
So these are the ones that are trying to go off, and it turns out they've got that. Most of them have that mutation, that receptor. Some of them may make neutralizing antibodies. They don't know yet. That's what they're looking for. They're trying to find something in these guys that they can turn and put in somebody else. All right, and then the consequence of CD4 death is going to be opportunistic infections,
Pneumonia.
malignant tumors, nervous system manifestations, which we talked about, wasting syndrome, and then metabolic disorders. Basically, your whole body just what?
Gives
That's,
out.
Just collapses.
Indeed.
I mean, I would have believed that whole HIV conspiracy theory except for what? That it was made as a weapon.
It takes too long.
It just takes too long. It's not effective. It's too hard to give people.
That's the whole point.
It takes, no, it doesn't do it. I mean, it takes too long. It's hard to administer.
They want it to
But
be slow.
you just got something that goes after the key linchpin to your entire immune system. It's just
I
amazing.
just think it's weird, but it kind of came from like nowhere, right?
No, it came from SIV, which is simian immunodeficiency virus, which is in monkeys. And
That's what I'm
the
saying,
original
monkeys.
was from what they call bushmeat. Bushmeat is
Yeah.
eat monkey, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so they think that's where it really came from. So somebody probably ate a chimpanzee or something that had SIV.
It's like that movie, the
that-
movie Contagion, I'm telling you.
I need to watch, maybe we'll watch
You
it.
need to watch it.
All right, bacterial opportunistic infections, bacterial pneumonia, TB is a bad one, and there's a special type, we'll get to that in a minute. Salmonella.
Nilla.
Salmonella
Bacteria.
bacteremia, because salmonella can get inside of your bloodstream, and now you got huge problems. This is a big one right here, Mycobacterium avium. Call it MAC.
That's the bird, right?
Okay, it's bird TB basically. And they use it as a model system for a lot of TB research, because if you're a healthy, immune competent individual, you will not get sick from this. You will test positive for TB, but you won't get sick from it. The downside is if you ever do get sick with this TB, it just decimates you. It just destroys every organ in your body almost. So it's really, really bad if you get it. Okay. Fungal opportunistic infections, candidiasis, thrush, coccidiomycosis, cryptococcus, and histoplasmosis.
So-
All of these are gonna be systemic fungal infections you get.
Candidiasis is thrush, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the problem with the systemic fungal infections?
Well, it's hard to kill fungal infections anyway, so
Treatment options are bad.
yeah.
Nothing really.
All right, and then protozoan infections, again, these can be parasitic things. Cryptosporidium, isoporiasis, this is the big one right here. That's one of the indicator diseases for HIV,
That's the pneumonia.
pneumocystis pneumonia.
That's what kills most.
Which kills most of the patients die from pneumocystis pneumonia. Toxoplasmosis can be activated in some HIV patients too. In most cases, people, it's what?
Cytomegalovirus.
Most people, how many people here have probably been exposed to toxoplasmosis?
Probably
Everybody.
Pretty much everybody, probably. Most of us probably have some of the parasite in us, but your immune system's able to keep it down. Remember I talked about CMV before?
No, don't remember. Really though.
This is another one right here
Yeah.
that is bad. And then the progressive multifocal leukoencephalopathy. God, they come up with these words. I don't know where they come up with them. CMV, about 50% of us have CMV in us already. It's a chronic infection, and again, normally your immune system keeps it down and okay. But
So
if
it's
you-
virus, it's herpes?
CMV, not CMV, but herpes. This is, why could this be a problem for HIV patients?
Humans and monkeys are natural hosts.
Because the lesions are open,
Hmm?
because of the lesions you get.
Have you ever seen somebody who has herpes simplex Lyme that's immunocompromised?
What is a
They
beta
can cover- They
herpes
can cover their
virus?
entire face almost just
Wow.
covered with the lesions. Because your immune system is fighting it all the time. And when it gets really bad, it's a really bad disease to have.
What's CMV again? I don't remember.
Cytomegalovirus.
Yeah.
What's
What does it do?
What's beta herpes virus? That's what it is,
Beta,
right?
which one's beta herpes?
It says it's in the subfamily of beta herpes virinae.
Cytomegalovirus?
Yeah.
So it's gonna be in this family right here, Herpesviridae family.
So then what's the difference?
I think everybody's like you're all exposed to this. It's very popular in like monkeys and humans.
Yeah, and it's, most people have it, most people have an issue with
It's
it.
related to like chicken pox and
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh,
But it can cause neurological issues if you have severe immunocompromisation.
okay.
All right, so right here, we're talking about the main ones here. We already talked about this, pneumocystis pneumonia, CMV, oropharyngeal and esophageal candidiasis, thrush. These are the indicator diseases, and then infections caused by NAC. These are the ones that started popping up, that they started noticing at the beginning of the AIDS epidemic, what was going on. I mean, because this is incredibly rare in immunocompetent people. You just don't see it, okay? And you also do you see thrush in adults very often. When do you see thrush?
Babies.
Babies can get thrush, adults very rarely get thrush. So all these weird things were popping up, that shouldn't have been popping up when it first came out. And then they didn't know, when it first started, they didn't know what it was. That's why they called it AIDS. Because they didn't know what was causing it. And they just knew it was an acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. All right. Is the following statement true or false?
False.
Infections that occur in AIDS patient are
Infections that occur from the AIDS patient are a direct result of viral
False.
activity.
False.
False. But true.
True.
I don't like the way that word is good. Larry thinks, what they're saying is it kills the immune cells directly. I would say that's an incorrect. Because the virus only kills the immune cells.
Yeah, but the question too.
So which one?
I don't want to ask that question.
Okay.
Saying that infections that occur in AIDS patients are direct from the, that's not true though.
Infections from the
Would you get an infection from
direct result
something?
of what they're saying is directly resulting from the
Because-
Like you
virus.
could typically fight off that infection
Because
if you weren't
To me,
immunocompromised.
I would put that as false. I would think that is false. the way that's worded.
Ditto.
To me, they were killing off the cell that's supposed to protect you, right? I would say that's incorrect. All right. So acute, remember we talked about it, did you find this already? Is that where you looked at them, when you knew these?
Here you go.
Fever, again, fever, fatigue, rash, headache, lipidopathy, and pharyngitis, but all of those are what?
Signs.
Non-specific viral, if you walked into a hospital with this, what would they tell you?
Yeah, that's new.
You got some viral infection, go home and do it.
Isn't
What's
On the
lymphedema?
on the next slide, like night sweats, that's typically like
I've got these covered here then, huh?
like somebody who gets night sweats, that's like typically that's like a
Yes.
big indicator, right?
Unless you're like older,
Yes.
then it could be like
So these are
menopause.
gonna be some of the other ones,
Legit.
joint pain,
Just night
again,
sweats, it's
non-specific.
weird.
Yeah.
Well, that's just non-specific, right? Muscle pain, I get that all the time.
Yeah, that's your back is always hurting.
This, night sweats is one of the ones that it does get a little bit weird, but who else has night sweats?
Menopausal women.
Menopausal women, night sweats.
You have
Leukemia,
D-sweats too,
lymphoma,
menopausal
also
women.
night sweats. So it's still, it is, but it's not as rare as you think.
But I mean, compared to the other ones, yeah.
It is, and that's one of the ones that people kind of start noticing is night sweats. Gastrointestinal problems,
You ate a bad burrito.
with the Chipotle.
Which is both.
Yeah, I mean, my whole life is gastrointestinal problems. Aseptic meningitis, now these are starting to get what?
Serious.
An oral and genital ulcers.
That would make you just go get an STD test, period.
Right, that would get an STD test, which is probably,
So what's the difference between aseptic meningitis and like the other, like viral meningitis
Bacterial.
or bacterial?
aseptic means without pathogens in there, so you're just getting, what does meningitis mean?
Swelling of the brain.
Swelling without the brain, that's
Oh, the
exactly what it
meninges.
is. The meninges around the brain. So this is, aseptic means what?
Without
just
virus,
getting
without
swelling.
bacteria.
Right, so you're getting, there's not, it's not some type of meningitis they know about, you're getting a swelling in the brain.
Meninges.
Alright, meninges, I said brain, didn't I? Meninges, sorry. Alright, respiratory manifestation associated with AIDS, okay? We went through all these different ones, right, here, different infections.
Respiratory.
We have covered most of those, right?
I didn't know Kaposi sarcoma was a respiratory.
Hmm?
I didn't know it was respiratory though. I thought the Kaposi sarcoma was
Where
like a
does
spot
it say respiratory?
at the top.
Infections with AIDS.
Oh
I
yeah,
didn't know that. That's what I'm saying.
but why? Why is it on that
I know
list?
what Kaposi sarcoma is, but I didn't know it was under that category.
Yeah, and all those can, I guess it's because it can manifest, I think, in any tissue.
Like
someday.
inside
And
the
then-
lungs.
I guess, yeah.
Move.
I'm not gonna get into that one. All right, people with weakened immune systems, this is CMV, because everybody's gonna ask about CMV, it's not been in here. CMV can have more serious symptoms, eyes, lungs, liver, esophagus, stomach, intestines. And the ones that usually have are gonna be babies, they can get CMV infection and get serious. But that's CMV, this is that Mycobacterium avium. Okay?
So what, microbiome?
So it's different.
Mycobacterium avium, it's another type like TB, but it's the one I said that most people, if you're exposed to it, your immune system's fine. But look at the symptoms here. Fever,
Oh,
night
wow.
sweats again, weight loss, loss of appetite, chronic diarrhea, swollen glands, anemia, blood infections, hepatitis,
So
pneumonia, weakness, fatigue, and abdominal pain. It pretty much just starts to destroy your organs from the inside out if you get this one. It's one of those ones that most people don't get, but if you ever come down with it, it is bad, because it's hard to treat also. Alright, so diarrhea is gonna be Cryptosporidium parvum, that's a parasitic disease. Candidiasis, we talked about CMV, herpes simplex, that's the one I talked about it when it gets on there. I mean, it's bad, see if I can find a picture of it, it's bad. I mean, it starts to not only manifest on the outside, it actually gets inside of the
For
mouth.
CMV?
No, herpes. So look up herpes outbreak in HIV or AIDS patients. Let's see what it shows. And the nervous system is gonna be AIDS-related dementia, toxoplasmosis, because that goes to your brain. And then you can talk about peripheral nerve damage, central nervous
Do
system.
you get it like all over your body or what?
What? What, herpes?
Yeah. Like your mouth just looks like horrible.
Yeah. And has anybody ever had a cold sore?
No.
One cold sore hurts, right? How does that have a whole face covered in them? And this is one right here, cancerous malignancies, Kaposi sarcoma, which is HHV8, which is also caused by what?
what do you mean?
Because it's not just HIV that can cause Kaposi sarcoma.
Oh.
It's not just HIV that can cause Kaposi
No.
sarcoma.
What causes Kaposi sarcoma? Kaposi sarcoma. The virus, HHEV, human herpesviridae, I think it's herpesviridae 8 is what actually causes it. But if you have a functioning immune system, you're able to clear that virus without a problem.
Oh.
Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, in particular, could be from a Epstein-Barr virus, non-invasive cervical carcinoma, blah, blah, blah. Non-invasive cervical carcinoma. All right, wasting syndrome, anorexia. What is anorexia?
Not
It's
eating?
not eating.
Just when your cells aren't getting nutrition,
Which one is not eating? Which of the two?
there's,
Anorexia not eating, or is
Oh,
that
anorexia nervosa is the one where you're choosing not to eat, right?
I don't know. Man.
And then our
Yeah.
Well, it's just
anorexia,
like a loss of
Yeah.
appetite.
but anorexia of the cells is when they don't get nutrition.
We don't need
They're like
to-
starving
But
them.
bulimia is what?
When you
Throwing
don't
up.
eat.
That's when binge and purge, right? Bulimia. A lot of people confuse those two.
Oh.
And anorexia is just not getting nutrition. Endocrine dysfunction, malabsorption.
anorexia, is it not eating or is it your cells not getting nutrients? Because there is a difference, I think, no?
Well, if you're not eating,
You're not
eating is
getting what you
eventually
need.
going to give yourself what?
Oh, okay,
Right, yeah, so.
okay.
Now, what about cytokine dysregulation? Because this happens in cancer. Why do a lot of cancer patients lose their appetite?
We talked about it.
Blasted with
Cytokines.
radiation.
Hmm?
The C-
Release of cytokines? Is it?
those cytokines.
We
Well,
talked
the
about
cytokines
it.
aren't being
Shit.
released then? Because, I mean, don't cytokines tell you to do stuff? Or I don't know.
Do they tell you, but what do they tell you? Cytokines can be pro-inflammatory or anti-inflammatory,
Pro-
depending on what cytokines you release. Problem with people with cancer and also with HIV is you start releasing cytokines. A lot of times when you get sick, you eat. A lot of people, are you hungry when you're sick a lot of times?
No.
No, because a lot of that has cytokines, a lot of them depress that, and that's what happens both in cancer and HIV.
Why, it's an inflammation?
So when
No,
you-
it's just one of the effects of the cytokines. I don't honestly, I don't know why.
Pathways.
Okay,
what's
so-
release of cytokines?
They
So
just
you're
think it's knocked
sick
down
and
the appetite.
cytokines get released. Why again?
Because you have an infection.
Inflammation.
Because of the infection.
Yeah.
Oh, it's an immune response. I remember.
Yeah.
Okay.
So characteristics are gonna be involuntary weight loss of at least 10% baseline body weight, persistence of diarrhea, more than 2 stools per day, more than you guys wanted to know, chronic weakness and fever. All right, get through this, I want you to, we're almost done. Lipodystrophy and mitochondrial disorders, what are those?
Well, for DNA.
That's your actual cells. The
Mitochondrial disorders, dysfunction of your energy producing cells, right? That's gonna cause weakness. Look at lipodystrophy, I know. You're gonna freak out what that is. It happens to HIV patients. Let's go down to this one. Hypercholesterolemia means what?
too much.
Nothing else I got high cholesterol on top of it. You know, not bad enough.
Maybe look at pictures.
Hypertriglyceridemia, insulin resistance, which is gonna lead to what? Impaired glucose tolerance, which now you're gonna have what?
Isn't it? Yeah, it's just, they like waste away in the face.
Yeah.
Yeah, that.
You get redistribution of fat. That's what it is.
They gave one of our patients, he has HIV and he has like that, his face is like, so he
Mhm.
gets filler, but
Yeah.
they give him growth hormones.
Well, yeah, probably get the aqua cells, they're probably.
I don't know what
yeah.
kind of growth hormones, but they're like super
Yeah,
expensive.
so this is where they get that sort of gauntlet, because they redistribute the fat.
Only guy I know what.
But, so on top of this now, you have high cholesterol,
Uh-huh.
and you've got